Hey friends, welcome to another Fridays with Francis, and this will actually be our last Fridays with Francis. As you can see, just about done. I would still encourage you, grab yourself a copy of Midnight Rider, and you can do that by going to francisasburysociety.com. You can click on bookstore, and then you can find yourself a copy of Midnight Rider. I've thoroughly enjoyed reading this book and learning more about Francis Asbury. I thought today I would just end with an inspiring story of not just Francis, but also a man named Richard Allen, who was a African-American pastor in the Methodist Church. It was the Methodist Episcopal Church at the time. The year is 1793, and if you know your history, you maybe remember that the city of Philadelphia was hit with an epidemic of yellow fever. The city of about roughly 50,000 people, 10% of the city's population died of yellow fever that summer. And Francis was traveling around and got word of what was happening in Philadelphia and that many of the residents were fleeing, which is understandable. But sadly, only the wealthy could afford it. And Francis immediately set off for Philadelphia to care, not just spiritually, but also physically care for those who were struggling against the wishes of many people who encouraged the bishop to stay out of Philadelphia in order to protect his own life. But for Francis, it was no question. He had to be there. Come to find out, nearly half the population fled Philadelphia. Philadelphia at the time was our country's capital. Washington, Jefferson, they fled. They had their other reasons, but basically the business of the government moved out of Philadelphia during the summer. Alexander Hamilton got sick with yellow fever that summer. Him and his wife, they did survive that, obviously. So Francis goes in to Philadelphia and finds Pastor Allen, Richard Allen, a good friend of his, one of his pastors, caring for the sick. And apparently, oddly enough, many believed that the blacks, African Americans, could not contract this disease. And so blacks were actually enlisted to care for those who were sick. In Philadelphia, there was no slavery. They were free. However, they were strongly encouraged. I'm not sure how all that worked, but you would find that many in the black community were caring for those who were sick with yellow fever, and many of them did die. This was not true, that they could not contract the virus. But Asbury came into Philadelphia, found Pastor Allen, and began helping in the cause of caring for those who were sick, despite many encouraging him to leave the city. He refused. And he also cared for their spiritual needs as well, preaching the need for them to repent and come to Christ, especially during such a dangerous time for their lives. And I just found that inspiring, not just Francis Asbury, but men like Pastor Richard Allen and many other in his church who, in the face of death, stayed and cared for those who were sick. And surely many of them got sick themselves, and some of them even died. I just thought that story was kind of appropriate for what we as a world are going through right now with the pandemic, that the love of Christ will not run away in the face of such danger, but will run towards those who are hurting and care for those in need. And that's what Asbury and Richard Allen and many others showed that summer there in Philadelphia. Well, I hope you have enjoyed these little videos and learning a bit more about Francis Asbury. Surely there is much more that could be said, and I'm excited to learn more as I join the Francis Asbury Society. And one last time, I would encourage you, grab a copy of the Midnight Rider, francisasburysociety.com, click on bookstore, and grab yourself a copy. Thanks, guys. Take care.